My name is Mercy. I was curious about the level of collaboration with either other consulates or embassies or even institutions to ensure there's no duplication of similar work. For instance, the Dutch are very big on potatoes, and I've heard potatoes again mentioned. So what are you doing to ensure then there's no duplication and you're working more collaborative with other institutions or embassies?
My name is Dr. Paris. I'm a medical doctor and I have a master's in public health. I have a particular interest in women who come from underprivileged families in their reproductive health, those who have stigma, especially when it comes to something as basic as pads or tampons. Oh, sorry. And I was just curious to know if the Irish government has taken a keen interest in this, and if they haven't, if they're thinking about it. And maybe it's something that you can think about, because I think in this day and age, in the 21st century, it's very unfortunate that women are still being stigmatized for something that is so natural.
You have the highly successful Young Scientists of Kenya program. And one of the things that is being discussed on the university side is how, I know you're working on the ecosystem behind that, but how to engage universities more in sort of a pipeline, because what the universities are, so many years of development aid, the things that faculty know well are the frameworks for development aid, stakeholder analysis theory, blah, 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 blah. Not necessarily how to build commercial value chains. And so it's not that, and I try to explain, it's the same framework, just tweak it and look at the accounting balance sheet, and they're like, but we don't have the data. We don't have, for example, in the potato industry, if you're trying to do specialty chemicals out of, what are the ratios they need to look for? So how do you then create a pipeline that takes all these wonderful ideas coming out of YSK and connects it to what universities can do?
No, Mercy, I'm going to come to your question first, which is a really excellent one. So yes, we have some very good coordination mechanisms obviously within the European Union. There's 19 of the 28 member states have embassies in Kenya, and we meet very regularly. We meet at least once a month at a number of different levels. So the ambassadors meet at a heads of mission level, and then you have heads of cooperation meet, and that's where the discussions around what individuals' programs, what they're doing. So when we were designing our program, we did take account of, the spheres that other people were involved in. And I hear what you're saying about the Dutch, and of course, I think the Dutch are now going to be the second largest exporter of agricultural exporters in the world, right? Which is phenomenal when you think of the size of their country and the fact that it was reclaimed from the sea, much of it. But so there is consultation around that. The particular Nyandarua project came up when our Deputy Prime Minister met President Kenyatta, and he said basically, he knows Ireland, and he was educated by the missionaries, so has that kind of instinctive knowledge, I guess, of the art. But he asked, would we work on potatoes specifically? So A, we have the expertise, of course, but B, it was a direct request from your president. But I know in other areas, there were other issues that we considered, and then we thought, no, other bigger donors are doing it on a bigger scale. So, again, the genetics and the forage part of the agriculture program I mentioned is very kind of specific, and nobody else is doing that. So the second question was a very important one around women's reproductive health. And of course, we saw an absolutely awful story in Kenya this week that was just, beyond devastating. And I think everybody, that gave everybody the pause for thought, right, that could happen. Our direct program here, as I mentioned, we're focused very solidly on those three programs. But we also do provide support to a number of NGOs. So, for example, we provide support to a big Irish NGO called Trócaire. And I know I visited some programs they work on, and one of them is young women who've become pregnant, getting them back into school and supporting them with all of, with what they need, in terms of sanitary products, with, education, books, all of those things. So I know that certainly the whole area of sexual and reproductive health for women is a real priority of Ireland. It may not be one that our embassy here is working on directly, but at a global level, Ireland is really engaged in that sphere. And we have a new development policy that our government just published in February. And we have 4 priorities, and one of them is gender equality. So, and it's something that we look at, like every program that we do, we look at through the lens of gender equality, whether it's business, whether it's education, you know, climate, all of those things. So I certainly agree with you that it's important, and I know that other donors are involved in that field. And indeed, in some of our other countries, we have programs that do provide small stipends so that, you know, girls can be equipped with the necessary, you know, sanitary products so that they can go to school every day of the month and not worry about, you know, being stigmatized. And the last... Yeah, it's a very timely question, actually. So just for the benefit, I mean, everybody probably doesn't know about the Young Scientist competition, I'm guessing. Of course, we've just spent so many months working on it, we think everybody should, right? But I'll quickly summarize it for you. So the Young Scientists competition, so Young Scientists Kenya was started in 2018, and it's a science competition for secondary schools that's designed to embed science, technology, engineering, and math skills in secondary schools. So we started with a pilot program, and it was based on a really, really successful Irish program. So we have something called Young Scientist Ireland. It's been running for about 55 years, and it is, as I explained, a science competition designed to get young boys and girls really excited and interested in science and thinking, I can be the person that makes that discovery. I can be the person that fixes that problem for my family or my community. So it's really contributed to the Irish innovation ecosystem and the Irish, you know, education system and everything. I mean, I did a quick review of some of the people who'd won it over 55 years in Ireland, and now one of them, like, I mean, there's a 22-year-old guy who founded Stripe, the payment system. It's now a billion-dollar company. He won it. There's top-class researchers, doctors, and so forth, you know, and people who are really making important contributions. So again, when we came to Kenya, you know, it's such an innovative and such an entrepreneurial country, and people are so driven. Like, I see that all the time. You know, people are always selling something. You know, it's great though, right? I mean, even people on the street, they're not knocking on your door. You know, they're knocking on your door and trying to sell you something. They, you know, people want to make a living and better their families. So we saw that as a very good fit. Started in 2017, we reached 10 counties as a pilot. So we had all these fabulous young students from all around those 10 counties come and present their inventions, essentially, brilliant inventions, like for healthcare or irrigation or energy for farmers in remote areas. And President Kenyatta agreed to open it for us. So you can imagine that was fabulous. And he was so impressed by it that he immediately said, A, I will become the patron of Young Scientists Kenya, but also I want you to scale it up nationally by next year. Now, what do you do when the President of Kenya says, I want you to scale it up nationally by next year, right? You abandon your plans for incremental expansion and just gear up. So that's what we did. So this year at the KICC, between August 6th and 9th, we had over 500 students from all 47 counties exhibiting really fantastic projects. I mean, it was so impressive. President Kenyatta came back, he toured the exhibition, and then he came in and he basically tasked all of the parastatals with supporting these young students to protect the IP. He waived trademark fees, and he basically tasked all the parastatals with working with these young students to commercialize those that were viable, those viable ideas. So it's effectively a presidential directive to really action what's come out of Young Scientists Kenya. The winners will go to Ireland and take part in our Young Scientists. The runners-up will go to Paris and take part in an African science program that's taking place there. The overall winners also got a full scholarship at Strathmore. So Strathmore is very, very involved in it. And many of the universities, actually, Riara University, they provided the mentors who went out into the communities and talked to the young people about science and the opportunities in science. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, when we look at Young Scientists, we have the government involved. Our board is chaired by the PS in Education, Pt2. We have Nacosti involved, we have Semistea involved, we have private sector involved. You know, we want to get more private sector involved, actually, and we're very keen to have more universities involved. But today, actually, and that's why I say your question is timely, just today I met with the leaders of the Next Einstein Forum. You're aware of that? It's coming, it's a fabulous international forum on science and technology. It's taken place in previous years in Ghana, in Senegal and Rwanda. And this year, or rather next year in March, it's coming to Kenya. So the leader of that had actually been at Young Scientists and seen it. So he came in to talk to me today about how can we build connections. So the next step in the Young Scientist program is for all those winners, we now run a boot camp over a week. So we come in, we get industry experts to come and talk to them, academics, about how do you protect your IP, how do you grow your business, how do you commercialize your idea, how do you raise funds. All of those things that, you know, successful entrepreneurs, of course, need to know. But definitely we'll be having industry, but also academia in to talk to them. So, you know, this August was only our second year. We're like little fledglings. But I think we're doing pretty well so far. And I have to say, Kenya has run with that program. Like really, it's been really heartening to see.
Part of the information could you link that up to our website so that people know what it is that can that be done? So that we have a link that's telling more about this information, but on our business forum link. So that, yeah, and all the other important information that we've talked about, we could have links that, anything that you can share, because it means then that a lot more people, because we have a lot more members, could look to this, and if they have a chat option there that they could just click on and ask questions directly, yeah?
We're a very small embassy.
Well, then you can give contact details as to who it is.
Ken, there's another hat for you to wear.
Yeah, because when we are looking for options like this, now that you've given us a lot of food for thought, and when we go back, we'll be thinking, I would want to dig a little further. So if you have that link, and we could just post questions on there, then maybe someone from your end could answer, even if not live, you know, you could pick up on it at some point, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's probably worthwhile linking anyway to our website, into the BIK website, right? As a starter,
yeah,
as a starting point.
Even that would be very helpful, yeah. All right, lovely. One more, really?
Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Niwo. I'm a lawyer. I just hit me actually that your embassy shares a building with the law firm in which I work in. So please feel free to come in for coffee when you have some time. Yeah. So my question is on the 3 projects that you intend to implement in Kenya. I don't know, are there any challenges that perhaps your team faced when creating the strategy and choosing these projects, as well as any challenges that you foresee in implementation of the projects here in Kenya, and how has your team strategized to overcome these challenges, more so specifically to these 3 projects in the country? And then also, please, could you kindly invite us for St. Patrick's celebration next year when the embassy is hosting this year?
There's a lot of cancer cases in Kenya. And the rumors it's agriculture linked to the food and, you know, the stuff that we're eating. I don't know whether you've had similar experiences in Ireland. And also, as you drive these agriculture programs, are you taking into account the chemicals and the stuff? Are you educating basically these farmers, especially in the use of chemicals and how to handle them? Because there's just a strong linkage. People feel it's connected to agriculture, the rise in agriculture and in cancer in the country. Secondly, the aid to trade sort of narrative a lot of embassies or consulates are following. How does that, what's your take in terms of Ireland's position, moving more to trade and entrepreneurship as opposed to aid? Just curious to understand if entrepreneurship is a central part of all these programs that you're running. And lastly, what education system does Ireland have?
Good evening. My name is Corinne. Actually, she touched on what I was going to ask about cancer and the effect of cancer on business. You know, because most of the business people are affected by cancer, and because they are affected, then of course the ripple effect can have a long-term impact. So I was like, does Ireland plan to do anything about assisting Kenya to face this menace, and especially on the area of oncologists, because maybe we don't even have enough doctors to tackle what we are already going through. So do they feel like there's something that they can do to assist us so that we can be able to address this?
Unfortunately, to your question about challenges on designing and designing and implementing the program, the design happened during the tenure of my predecessor. So I've only been here 3 months. But I do know that they took quite a scientific approach to it, right? They had huge consultations with like all the potential stakeholders, and that really ended up in the strategy that the Ireland-Kenya agri-food strategy, the Young Scientists Kenya, the plans for that, and then of course the private sector. So I can't really speak to the challenges that they faced in developing it. And when I talk about the for example, the Pt2 project at the moment, that has been affected by the rains, right? Yes. As so many farmers have been affected by the rain. So I believe we have 2 test sites. One is doing well, one is not doing so well. So, climate, of course, climate change is impacting, so many people, and that's something that I think that we're seeing. On the other issues, we're just about to launch the catalytic fund, which is the co-ops. We're just about to launch the dairy one. So certainly a huge amount of planning has gone into, what are the structures in place, who's the implementing partner, what are their audit arrangements, what are their governance structures, how are we going to monitor and evaluate these programs, and at the end of all that, what's the residual risk? So of course that process has been gone through, but so far we haven't literally launched them. So maybe if you're kind enough to invite me back in a year or 2, I'll be able to do a better job of answering that question.
It won't be that long. Usually we take about 6 to 7, 8 months. Then we'll have to invite you back and check where we are.
So the correlation between cancer and food, I'm so sorry to hear that that's a big issue. Obviously that's devastating for so many families and communities. I mean, I suppose when our agriculture agency is working here, so when Chagas comes and works with Calero, or for example, we've had Kefis, the seed certifiers, send people over to Ireland, they're looking at our systems, which is all around, sustainability, quality, safety. Obviously Ireland is also really regulated because we're a member of the EU, so there's a lot of regulations in place. So I would say that's certainly a strong component of the lesson learning and sharing that's happening in these institutional partnerships that take place. With regard to the third question that was also on cancer and cancer in businesses, I mean, that's certainly not a focus of our program at the moment. We don't have a distinct health component. That's not to say in the future our program won't evolve. I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to kind of, I guess, work on the areas that are most prevalent. And actually that reminds me, I have to come back to you on your second question about the aid to trade debate, which is a very good one. And I mean, our embassy, our mission here is very different. We're not coming in with millions of money, millions of euros or dollars. We have a very small development program. And what it's about is providing support from the lessons we've learned to support Kenya so that, I mean, of course, we support you in terms of your private sector development and agriculture and education and all of that, but also it's building linkages, right? And it's building strong connections. And for example, so yes, we work on agriculture. We also have a fund called the Africa Agri Development Fund that's designed to drive, partnership between Irish and Kenyan firms. So an Irish firm that looks to Kenya and sees, okay, I want to get into the Kenyan market. I see potential in this sphere. Is there somebody that can soften the risk for me? That's what this fund is designed to do, really. So it is supporting Irish and Kenyan partners to work together. It's been running for a number of years. A number of Kenyan companies have benefited from it, along, of course, with Irish companies. And we just had one and recently signed a $3 million deal as a result of it. So our focus here is, we're primarily a trade and economic mission. We're working on these very specific factors, but always looking to the future and thinking, how can this build our trade and investment relationship? How can this build two-way travel between our countries, tourism, all the other sectors that we're involved in? And I think overall, in terms of our development program, it's not focused on Kenya, because of course Kenya is a middle-income country. It's focused on conflict and fragile and conflict-affected states mostly, and it's focused on reaching the furthest behind first, in line with the SDGs. So really, where Ireland is providing our aid, it is focused on sub-Saharan Africa, but a lot of it would be going to, countries, maybe in the Sahel, or very poor communities in Ethiopia and Tanzania and in Malawi, which obviously is, having huge issues. and places like Somalia, you know, so that's where our aid is going, and it's still needed there. But in countries like Kenya, which is a lower middle income country, we're very much looking for a trade and, you know, a trade and investment partnership. That's what, you know, I speak to the Kenyan government, and that's what they say. We want trade and investment, you know. So that's where we see the future, certainly.
So we've talked about the science part, the agriculture part. Is there, maybe in the future, would you looking at partnership in the finance sector? Because I haven't heard much of a partnership between Kenya and Ireland.
In terms of like financial institutions?
In financial institutions or similar projects, you know, the bilateral relations, but in the finance sector.
Yeah. I mean, certainly it's something we could consider if there's, I mean, you know, we're open to ideas where, you know, we've set our strategy now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But as I say, that could evolve. And Ireland has a particular knowledge and, you know, very big expertise in fintech.
Yeah.
So that's an area that,
exactly.
you know, could be explored. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So one last one, to qualify for the catalytic fund, or even to start looking at it, what, or is that a Kenneth question? what would one start to look at? Yeah.
Actually, the catalytic fund it's not an open call.
Okay.
So we have a partner. We've appointed a partner that works already with a huge number of cooperatives.
Okay.
And is deeply engaged with cooperatives, and we've asked them to shortlist a number of cooperatives.
Okay.
And then we're going to work with our partners to choose the
okay.
6 or 7 best ones that best fit our criteria around being, you know, using climate smart innovation and so forth.
Okay.
So unfortunately, it's not an open call.
Okay. Then in terms of grants, are there any coming from Ireland into businesses? I'm thinking somebody who is doing small scale produce. Do you look to getting them to the next level? Other than just the skills transfer, do you give them money to push them to the next level?
I guess the catalytic fund is designed to that, but for cooperatives.
Yes.
So we don't have a general funding scheme, no,
Okay.
we don't. So we do some small grants, but they're
Okay.
generally for NGOs, you know, small NGOs, maybe running health clinics or so forth.
Okay.
And they can apply for, you know, relatively small amounts of funding once a year. And the closing date for that will be about next April. No, maybe it might be the end of the year, and they'll be chosen in April. I'm trying to remember. For the micro projects? Starts at the beginning of the year? Yeah. But they're really, you know, they're quite small amounts of money for health clinics or other things. I should mention, like, we do have a small fund going for tackling FGM.
Okay.
We have a gender equality or gender line in our budget, very small, but at the moment we're focusing that money on tackling FGM. But in terms of, is there a fund that I can say to all the people sitting in this room that yes, you can go and apply for? No, there isn't, because you know,
unless they have
quite...
NGOs, unless they run NGOs.
Yes, exactly, and then the
Okay.
micro projects might be an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, we always blow in Kenya. Okay, I'm Alan. I've got a lot of interest in education, since it's my greatest area of interest. And I deal with probably the character formation, the innovation, and probably things that can help basically children who are not, who have not reached probably secondary school. I've had a privilege to be in basically an informal settlement, and we've had several programs. One, like my friend here was talking about, the health of the girls and what have you. Then there's this organization that we started some few years ago, but I've just been impressed by what you've said, that there's some small fund that you're giving, apart from attacking FGM, you realize that people, some children in slums and informal settlements have a great challenge of accessing quality health care. So this project, we would think of maybe if you get some support from maybe island, we can probably maybe do some package some medicine and some other basic treatment equipment so that we can probably offer free medical services for those people who are in informal settlement. That is my first question. Is it possible for you to maybe help us in that? Or how can we partner with you so that we can boost that agenda that we have? Number two is in the science and technology system, whereby you are trying to put it to probably secondary school students. You realize that character is basically and best developed at a primary level when a child is around 12 years thereof, 12, 10 years. Have you thought of other innovations or innovative skills that can help these children become more entrepreneurial, more creative, and create other avenues? And what is the sustainability agenda behind it? Because most of the time you find that in informal settlements, these NGOs come, they just pump the idea. When the money is over, they go away without leaving any tangible continuity within the system. What are you doing about that?
We told you were going to solve all Kenya's problems tonight. So,
my name is Eunice. So I'm an investment professional. I'm also an economist, and I'm also just recently a pig farmer. So I'm very excited to hear about the things you're doing on the agriculture sector. So my question is, when I think about our agriculture sector and the exports, I think our problem is twofold. So we have the problem of volume and we have the problem of value. Now, most of the interventions you've mentioned are helping us produce more. Okay, so it's access to the capital, facilitating capital, inputs, and knowledge. But what you've not touched on is how do we increase value of our products? Because like Kenya, we're mainly an agricultural economy, but we're a net importer of agricultural food products. So the fact that Ireland, is a huge exporter of food, what lessons can we learn from you? And then to what extent do you think we can attribute this problem to the trade treaties? So for instance, I think developing countries thrive on importing low-value agricultural products, add value, and then export back to the developing nations. So how can we correct for this?
So just to come back and answer your question first, as I mentioned to you, we have a very small amount of funding available for small projects. Some of it already does go to health and education projects in informal settlements. It's a competitive process. Of course, your NGO is very welcome to apply. There's a set of criteria and there's an application process, and you can get more information about that. I'm just trying to think, is it on our embassy website, I wonder, or no, maybe not. Yeah, okay. So Ken will give you his email and he can maybe pass it on to our colleague who deals with that, to Walter maybe, and facilitate that introduction. I absolutely think you're so right on the education question. Of course, it is really important to reach kids when they're younger. And I believe that Young Scientists Ireland now has a younger component to it. And again, that's something that we may evolve in Kenya over time. Right now, we're just 2 years into this really exciting program. But I certainly think, given the political and the private sector and everybody else's involvement from a Kenyan perspective, there's certainly great potential for it to grow and evolve over the years ahead. To come to the value and agriculture piece, yes, you're right, that's critical, right? And I think we are working on that actually through the dairy project, because what that is about is getting better yields and better quality yields for farmers, right? So getting better quality inputs, better quality types of animals, so that the farmers' margins increase. But are you talking about value addition? So for example, to tea, coffee, and all of that, so forth. Yeah, look, that is so important. And of course, in terms of job creation, it's huge. And I think, I think it's something it's part of, I think it's certainly something Kenya is working on, or at least visualizing through the manufacturing sector of the Big Four. I can't speak to you about, in any great detail, about the trade treaties that particularly pertain to value addition, because I just don't know enough about it. But I do agree with you that it's very important. It's not something that we're engaged in. As I said, we have these 3 tranches, and those are the sectors that we've chosen and where we feel we can add most value. I think the value addition piece will be part of all of those discussions, but that's not the kind of overriding strategic objective of each of the programs. But I'm sure it'll be part of it.
Okay. And that's it, isn't it? Probably the most important question of the night. Yeah. No, she said St. Patrick's. Did you get an answer for that? Okay. Cool. And you're probably not going to get one? Not tonight?
Unfortunately, we can't invite 100 people to our St. Patrick's Day party. I hate to tell you, but hopefully maybe we'll be in touch, and we can certainly invite. Make a plan. Exactly.
I just want to know, can you invite Liam Neeson here? You know Liam Neeson, right? Yeah, so they shoot movies in Africa generally, so they could come and do it here.
You know what? I'm going to put that in my KPIs for next year.
So
can I just say before we end, actually, thank you all so much for coming out. It's great to see such a big audience, and I'm delighted to see so many women, and with so many women with so many brilliant questions. So thank you, and all of you, for coming out tonight, and for your interest and your engagement in Ireland. And just when you think about us, know that we are a great partner of Kenya, a great friend of Kenya, and our job is to really develop that. Yeah. So now I get to choose the winner.
Yeah, let's see what you're going to win. This is courtesy of Jacaranda. A complimentary dinner voucher for 2. So basically, when you win it, you're welcome to come for dinner for 2. So hopefully your card is in here. There we go. Oh, wow. Oh, my No, it's this one. Yeah, dinner for 2. So we'll give it to you to give it to her. Yeah, shoot, yeah. Ooh, congratulations. A big hand. Oh, lovely. Congrats. Yeah. And yes. Show of hands. Who got something useful from today's event? Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. As you can see, we strive to be educational. We strive to grow our businesses to the next level. Your embassy, starting with the previous ambassador, has been a partner of ours, especially with me, for the beer care breakfast and this. And so we can't thank you enough for continuing the trend. And I would like to tell you that we, as a tradition, invite our speakers every 7th month to come and, yes. So from then we'll be seeing how far you've gone and how many more questions you have. Kenneth, I would like you to say hello and to let people know that from here, if they have any questions, that they can talk to you.
So I'm Kenneth Kitonga. I'm the commercial attaché at the Embassy of Ireland, and I promise to answer some of your questions if you have any. And I can always share our contacts at the embassy and my personal one as well.
Good evening. So I'm Joy Gathiaka. As you've heard, I handle Business Ireland Kenya, which is basically our business association. It's like our business chamber. Sort of like what you have here. So we have breakfast on topical issues. We have the upcoming social event, which I expect to see most of you at. So after this, you can maybe approach me, you can ask me about Business Ireland Kenya, what we do, what you can benefit from, and I'll be sure to answer your questions.
Will you hang around for a little bit so that people can meet you and maybe learn about Liam Neeson a little bit more? With that, everyone, I'm so grateful that you came out. As usual, we'll meet here again. I'll be letting you know when. So until then, let's give her a big hand.